all across America on SportsMap Radio. We are anywhere you have an internet connection of any kind, phone, whatever, on the SportsMap Radio app. Ah, boy. It's finally here. I don't know why. Most of the weeks that I do this show feel like they just fly by. And then there's this week, which sorry, my dog is just pushing bowls around in the background there. I got to tell you, this week felt like the slowest week that I've ever had doing this show. It just dragged and dragged and dragged, just waiting to get to the, to this divisional playoff weekend. It just took forever for us to get here. I feel, and look, I feel like we've said so much already as it pertains to this weekend that tonight when I was preparing the show, I was writing down notes and what am I going to talk about? And our producer tonight, Justin, who's working on the show, sent me a note. He said, "So what are we talking about? Or what's on the agenda?" And I didn't even respond because honestly, I feel like the time for talk is done. Like let's get to it. Let's get to these divisional playoff games because we've talked all week about so many different angles to what is going on in this weekend's games. Who needs it the most? What happens if Dallas loses badly? What does it mean for Mike McCarthy? I mean, we've gone into so many different aspects of these games. Now it's just time to see what happens. Time to roll the footballs out on the field and let's just see what happens. I'm very interested. Excuse me, I'm a little congested. I'm very interested to see what happens. We've talked so much over the first, week or 2 weeks now of the NFL postseason with teams trying to figure out what they're going to do vis-a-vis the draft, vis-a-vis quarterback situations. We know what's going on in Las Vegas with Derek Carr, the situation in flux in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. One situation we have not talked a lot about. I talked about it a bit last night with Nick Ferguson, our guest who joins us every week on the show, who is a terrific analyst of the NFL, a former NFL safety, host of the Touchdown Denver podcast. We talked at great length, or at greater length than we have at any other time, about Tennessee. And the situation in Tennessee is kind of up in the air, and that's a good football team. Forget what happened with them, losing in the final week of the season, Jacksonville winning the division. As long as Derrick Henry's legs hold up and his body holds up, that team is still a very good football team. Mike Vrabel is a terrific head coach. They struggled a bit offensively this year. They had injuries because of what was going on with Ryan Tannehill, and Malik Willis didn't play particularly well. They had to go to Joshua Dobbs, who's barely ever played in his NFL career, who made his first NFL start this year after years of sitting around on the bench and on practice squads. So the situation in Tennessee has been kind of interesting because where's that franchise going? Where's that organization going? And the new Titans general manager is taking a wait-and-see approach right now. So we have no idea what the future holds. Do they go to the draft? Do they go and try and work out some trades? Do they look at free agency? I mentioned Aaron Rodgers as a potential destination last night in Tennessee, and it certainly seems that if the Packers go the route of a trade, or if the Baltimore Ravens go the route of trading Lamar Jackson, that Tennessee, like the Jets, could be the team that's in the market for a quarterback. And then what does that mean for Ryan Tannehill? Could he wind up somewhere else? I've said this before, I know, and I'm going to say it again. There are so many different things in motion right now as it relates to this offseason. I mean, it really is just absolutely fascinating to watch. The different movements that are underway, some quietly, some not so quietly, and, where it's all leading. Once we get past the Super Bowl and teams start having to make decisions about cutting guys, trading guys, looking at the draft, the NFL season will not end with, the Super Bowl. It just keeps going and going and going. And Tennessee is one of those spots that I think is pretty interesting because that's not a team that's terribly far away. I think they hurt themselves by letting some of their receivers go. Someone wind up in Philadelphia. I do think that team needs help at the receiver position. In fact, I had suggested that was a team that would have wanted to look at Odell Beckham Jr. if it wasn't for the fact that Odell Beckham Jr. didn't wind up actually playing this year. So the situation in Tennessee is kind of interesting. I only bring that up because I was literally reading about it before we came on the air, and I know I probably won't have much time to get to it as we go through the rest of the night. I should tell you we have a phone number. 1-800-224-2004. 800-224-2004 is the phone number. If you want to hit me up on Twitter throughout the night, feel free to do so at the back page. Again, on Twitter as we go through the show tonight, at the back page. Great guest lineup tonight. Gregg Doyel, who I think is one of the finest sports columnists in America. And I mean this. He's with the Indianapolis Star. He's been there a while. He was with Yahoo. He's been at a lot of different outlets over the years. But I think Gregg Doyel is one of the finer sports columnists out there. I don't think I've spoken to him in 12 or 13 years. We're going to change that tonight. Gregg Doyel will be my guest coming up 23 minutes from now in our 2-for-1 tonight. And he wrote a very, I think, poignant column today about Tony Dungy. And I know there are some people that think that now it's becoming a pile-on thing when it comes to Tony Dungy. But the fact of the matter is, for years, he's been getting away with sort of hiding behind the idea of him. And I hope people don't take offense at this because it isn't meant to be anti-religion. But he's been hiding behind his religion and using it as sort of a facade to attack groups that are particularly vulnerable, like the LGBTQ community. And this isn't me doing some political show. It's a sports talk show. But the fact of the matter is, Tony Dungy is one of the most prominent sportscasters working on one of the NFL's biggest flagship shows of the week in Sunday Night Football. So I don't think you can avoid not discussing some of the things he has said and done over the years and what he has done in the past week by suggesting that, in attacking the transgender community in the country, a very marginalized group as it is, by saying something and putting something on his Twitter feed that was completely unfounded that, elementary schools are putting litter boxes in the bathrooms for kids who identify as cats, taking shots at people who are transgender. And the fact of the matter is he had to delete that tweet later on because it turns out that isn't true. And the only people who engage in putting out that kind of propaganda are people on the furthest fringes of our political discourse. And apparently that includes Tony Dungy. And NBC has taken the approach, and I've worked for NBC Sports when I was with them for 3.5 years. So I can go on and on about how, they protect certain people and how they, have these schmooze fests and these love fests with different announcers that they have. But the fact of the matter is, Tony Dungy's been doing this stuff for a long time. He's never hid who he is. The only shocking part about this whole Tony Dungy thing is the fact that it's been allowed to go on this long. So we're going to talk about it tonight with Gregg Doyel. And if it's something that you find interesting, hopefully you'll like it. And if it's something that you just want to ignore and pretend it doesn't exist, or maybe you even support the kinds of things that Tony Dungy is advocating, then, hey, have at it. Whatever makes you feel better. Well, we're going to shine a light on who the guy is. Because, you watch him on Sunday Night Football, and, everybody likes to talk about this gentleman and this Hall of Famer, and he's such a great person, and he's such a great Christian, and he's such a nice guy. Well, some of the stuff he's been saying and doing doesn't really point back to him as being the things that people have tried to make him out to be. So we'll talk about that coming up with Gregg Doyel, who wrote a great column for the Indianapolis Star in the last couple of days, and we'll get to him on that. My buddy Daryl Guru Johnson will stop by at 11:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Pacific, and we'll get his thoughts on what has to be a conflicting weekend for him. He's a huge Cowboys fan, and he does a talk show in 49er land. Stick around. We're coming back. Some live betting talk on the Cash In, SportsMap Radio. All of a sudden, as I started the show, I got super congested. It was the strangest thing. I can't breathe. I got all this phlegm. Hold on one second. Be right back. Oh, that's the craziest thing. I don't think so. I just got all congested all of a sudden. Phlegmy. Wow, this thing keeps ice forever. Oh, down to the last can. Late. Probably 10. 11. So many cans. Can. Can. Spoiled brat. He's a spoiled brat. Ugh. What's going on? Ugh. Breathe. Yeah. Quarter past the hour, we continue with the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. and the SportsMap Radio app. My conversation with Gregg Doyel of the Indianapolis Star comes your way 15 minutes from now. So we'll get into the Tony Dungy stuff with him, and I'm curious to know from him on that story exactly how much of a hit Dungy's reputation has taken from all of this in Indianapolis, because talking about a Hall of Fame coach in that market. I always was, and this had nothing to do with him as a person. I always thought he was a fringe Hall of Fame guy, and he got him pretty easy. And I didn't really think he was a Hall of Fame coach. Winning one Super Bowl in all those years with Peyton Manning, arguably, one of the top 5 or 6 greatest quarterbacks of all time, and certainly one of the top 2 or 3 of this generation. I was always of the mindset that he kind of got a lot more love than he should have. I think he's a good head coach. I think he might even be able to say he's a very good head coach. I think he was a Hall of Fame coach. So kind of interesting to see if, how much his legacy and his reputation have suffered from everything that's transpired here over the last few weeks. I also am going to play something during that interview for our audience and for Gregg, because Dungy spoke today at a Right to Life giant event outside in Washington, D.C., and he said something that's kind of cringeworthy for me. Nothing to do with the LGBTQ stuff. Just something he said that I was just like, ew, this feels like even a stretch for Tony Dungy to say. But he did. And you'll hear it coming up during my conversation with Gregg Doyel. So, wild card, or I should say divisional playoff weekend is here. Let's give you the final look at the odds and where things stand. We'll do Paige's picks later on in the show. Don't worry. We'll do that to start the final hour of the show. About 2 hours, about an hour and 35 or hour and 43 minutes from now, something like that. I'm all about being precise if you've never listened to this show. So here's where we are with the lines as we get to the finish line of this long, interminable wait for the start of the divisional playoff round. Jaguars plus 8.5 right now for their matchup in Kansas City. That line is pretty much held firm all week, as has the total at 52.5. 385 on the money line. If you're looking for some value on the Jags, that's where you will find it. The second game on Saturday, so that's the first game on Saturday. The second game on Saturday at 5:16 p.m. Pacific. I got to get my thing out because this is, for some reason, my stuff is coming to me in mountain time here. Giants-Eagles, 5:15 p.m. on the West Coast, 8:15 p.m. on the East Coast. Giants and Eagles in Philly. This line is also held firm, with the Giants at plus 7.5 right now and plus 290 on the money line. 48.5 is your total. And look, as long as that line stays over 7, I think you have to take the Giants. I know that's a bit of a spoiler for Paige's picks coming up a little later on in the show, but I think you have to take the Giants at plus 7.5. Then we get to Sunday's game. Cincinnati and Buffalo, they are the first game on Sunday. They get underway at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, with Cincinnati, sort of carrying that chip on their shoulder. And they've carried it all season long. Because, look, for all the conversation we get about Buffalo, who were the preseason picks to win the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes and, what they're doing in Kansas City, and they've had a great season. And then over in the NFC with Philadelphia, the story of Brock Purdy. Throughout the year, Cincinnati's kind of just been that forgotten team. And they got hot in the second half of the year. They've played some of their best football They didn't look particularly sharp, I didn't think, in the win over the Ravens last week. But Buffalo didn't play its best football in the win over Miami. So it leaves me just kind of with a meh feeling about this game in terms of who do I like. It's probably the hardest game for me to pick this week. It's Buffalo minus 5.5. The Bengals plus 198 on the money line. 49.5 is the total as of tonight. The game everybody's going to be watching, I think this is going to do a huge ratings number too. And we'll talk about it with Daryl Guru Johnson coming up about an hour and 10 minutes from now. That's the Cowboys and the 49ers in Santa Clara, where the 49ers have been damn near unbeatable with Brock Purdy at quarterback. I think they've averaged like 36 points a game with Purdy as the starting quarterback in home games. But they haven't played a defense as good as this Cowboys team. And yes, I know you get some opportunities in the secondary against the Cowboys, but their front four, they get pressure on the quarterback. And that's going to be the big question. I said it on the show yesterday, and I'll say it again. This game, the one out that the Cowboys have, I've said the 49ers could win this game a myriad ways. The Cowboys, they got a one-outer they got to hit, and it's Brock Purdy. It's figuring out a way to make him uncomfortable and start second-guessing whether he belongs in this moment or not. And that means having to get to him early, creating turnovers. I think the Cowboys have to win the turn. I think Dallas has to win the turnover game by 2. If they win by 2 and Dak plays the kind of game he played last week, then the Cowboys could win this game. Anything other than that, and the 49ers are going to roll. They're going to roll because they've got so many different ways they can beat you. They can beat you in a low-scoring game because they're so good defensively. They can grind it out with McCaffrey on the ground. They can get you in the receiving game with Kittle and Samuel. They have so many different ways they can beat you. It doesn't matter what the personality of your team is. With the kind of defense that San Francisco plays, they're going to have a shot in any game. The line dropped. This was the game that's seen the most line movement since the week started. It was 4.5 when the Cowboys beat Tampa Bay on Monday night. It's now dropped all the way down to 3.5. Some places you can still get it at 4. FanDuel's got it at 3.5. That's who we use on this show. Cowboys minus 3.5. The Cowboys plus 172. The total is 46.5. I have made my feelings known on this game throughout the entire week, and I will continue to say it. To me, the easiest bet of the week is San Francisco minus 3.5. I think all the totals this week are kind of spot on, and you know, a lot of weeks you'll hear me when I do Page's picks. I get pretty. I'll probably half of my picks will be picks regarding the total of a game. And you're not going to see that this week. I think the spreads are the easier picks. Not saying they're easy, but the easier of the picks on these games is the lines. And San Francisco is the greatest example of that at minus 3.5. I think the odds makers have whiffed badly on this game. I love San Francisco minus 3.5. So we'll do Page's picks coming up about an hour and a half from now on the show. NBA live betting tonight. Oh, we love live betting. We didn't do any games. We didn't do any NBA live betting last night. Memphis and the Lakers tied at 9 in the early going in La La Land, and that's the game we're going to have our eye on as it relates to live betting. LeBron and company minus Anthony Davis, who reportedly could be back soon. And that would be a game changer. That would be a game changer for the Lakers right now. There's talk they could get Anthony Davis back next week. Frankly, I don't know why you don't just hold him out until after the All-Star break at this point and let him get fully rested, make sure he's right. But there is talk that Anthony Davis could be back next week. We got Ja Morant against LeBron James tonight in Los Angeles. Lakers have lost some tough games late over the last few weeks, and the officiating has not helped. I mean, if you're somebody who's betting on some of these games and you've seen some of these Laker losses lately, you're a bit of a skeptic at this point about whether or not the Lakers can get a fair shake from the officials in some of these close games late, because the officiating has been so badly against the Lakers in these last 2-minute reports that come out. I mean, they've lost a couple of games because of bad officiating. There's no getting around it. So we'll keep an eye on that game. Gregg Doyel joins us on the other side from the Indianapolis Star. We'll talk about Tony Dungy and more on the Cash In at SportsMap Radio. Rolling along on this Friday edition of the show. You heard me talk about it a little while ago and getting into it now as well with Gregg Doyel, columnist for the Indianapolis Star. He does a terrific job. Been reading his stuff for years. He wrote a great piece on former Colts head coach Tony Dungy, of course, now with NBC. Gregg, how much does this side of Dungy that we know and see now surprise you?
Well, for me personally, not much, because he's been this way, well, probably his whole life, but he's been publicly this way for years. He came out when Michael Sam played at Missouri, came out the first openly gay NFL draft prospect. Dungy was on the record for whoever he was talking with, NBC, whatever, saying he wouldn't draft Michael Sam. So, and that was 8 years ago, maybe, if not more. So he is who he is, and he hasn't, some people hide who they are. Dungy doesn't have the sense to hide this side of him.
No, he certainly doesn't. You bring up a great point in your column, which if folks haven't read, you get at me on my Twitter link at the back page. Tony Dungy's son committed suicide, and it was an awful story. I remember at the time I was working at Sirius, I think, when it happened, which is about as awful a thing as a parent could go through. Understanding this.
Yeah, I mean, it's baffling it's baffling. And
On this Friday edition. Rolling along on this Friday edition of the show. You heard me talk about it a little while ago and getting into it now as well with Gregg Doyel, columnist for the Indianapolis Star. He does a terrific job. Been reading his stuff for years. He wrote a great piece on former Colts head coach Tony Dungy, of course, now with NBC. Gregg, how much does this side of Dungy that we know and see now surprise you?
Well, for me personally, not much, because he's been this way, well, probably his whole life, but he's been publicly this way for years. He came out when Michael Sam played at Missouri, came out the first openly gay NFL draft prospect. Dungy was on the record for whoever he was talking with, NBC, whatever, saying he wouldn't draft Michael Sam. So, and that was 8 years ago, maybe, if not more. So he is who he is, and he hasn't, some people hide who they are. Dungy doesn't have the sense to hide this side of him.
No, he certainly doesn't. You bring up a great point in your column, which if folks haven't read, you get at me on my Twitter linked at the back page. Tony Dungy's son committed suicide, and it was an awful story. I remember at the time I was working at Sirius, I think, when it happened, which is about as awful a thing as a parent could go through. Understanding the suicide rates amongst the LGBTQ plus community, which is something you wrote about in your column, the way we do, it almost makes what he does all the more infuriating and hard to understand for somebody that calls himself a Christian.
Yeah, I mean, it's baffling and heartbreaking and disgusting, really, on so many different levels. I mean, just pick any of those ideas you threw out there, including and the way I feel about things, leading with the fact that he's a Christian. I don't understand people who spout off their views and kind of hold it up as a shield, like this is my get out of jail free card. I'm a good person, and yet they would say something as hateful as what Dungy said, and Lord knows he's not alone. And not knowing or not caring, I'm not sure which is worse, the impact that not can have but will have on some of the most vulnerable, fragile people in our society. People that are LGBTQ are questioning, or what. It's not easy, and I've seen it firsthand, so it's infuriating, to say the least.
It is. It's perplexing, and I don't know if you saw it today, but he was at the Right for Life March. And for people who didn't hear it, and you'll be able to hear it too, this was Tony Dungy invoking Damar Hamlin's cardiac arrest as he calls on Americans to pray for an end to abortion. Listen to this.
Well, those prayers were answered. Damar's recovering now. He's home. He's been released from the hospital. But what's the lesson in that? An unbelievable thing happened that night. A professional football game with millions of dollars of ticket money and advertising money on the line. That game was canceled. Why? Because a life was at stake. And people wanted to see that life saved. Even people who aren't necessarily religious got together and called on God. Well, that should be encouraging to us, because that's exactly why we're here today.
I mean, this is, listen, this is even for Tony Dungy, this is a stretch, Gregg.
Well, yeah, he's out to lunch, but the thing is, and there have been times in my life where I kind of wish I was in that camp, just because it must be nice. It must be nice to, and I guess that's what faith is. It must be nice to be that out to lunch, that the whole idea of prayers were answered. Damar Hamlin is alive because prayers were answered. I can't get behind that, and not because I'm a hateful person, because I'm a loving person. I can't get behind the idea that prayers were answered so Damar was saved, but how many people die every day and the prayers weren't answered? What does that say to their parents? And, I can't get behind the fact that the power of prayer is actually changing lives down here, because what about all the people who got prayed for that didn't live? It puzzles me is the nicest way I can say how I feel about that.
Yeah, it's the whole thing I heard today. It was kind of cringy. It was kind of cringe worthy. Talking with Gregg Doyel.
All I heard was thousands of people cheering. I don't know about you, but all I could hear is thousands of people cheering, because they love to be told they love to be told what they think they know.
Gregg Doyel, columnist for the Indianapolis Star, joining us here on the Cash In SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. What I'm as confounded about in all of this, having been part of the NBC family for a few years with NBC Sports Radio as a host, is why NBC chooses to put up with it. Because let's be honest, Gregg, you've worked in sports a long time. I've worked in sports a long time. How many people do you run into that are really watching Sunday Night Football going, man, I can't wait for that riveting Tony Dungy analysis? I don't get what the lure is to even have him on there to begin with.
Well, I guess the lure is that he's in the Hall of Fame. He won a Super Bowl. I mean, the lure is not that he's going to say anything very interesting. But listen, I mean, you heard thousands of people cheering, and when someone like him says what he says about kitty litter, there are millions of people that think he's right. And so people like Tony Dungy have their crowd. They are a draw in some circles for reasons that people who actually want to be entertained can't understand. But he's part of a very powerful block of people, and that powerful block of people really don't care about a whole lot of details.
I might be asking you to prognosticate something that you might not care to prognosticate, and if you don't, that's fine with me. Do you think this will have any impact on NBC? The outrage, not you per se, but I'm saying the general scorn and outrage that's out there right now about this?
No. I think it'll blow over. Are you asking basically, do I think he's going to lose his job or get somehow reprimanded?
Yeah. And look, the way I look at it is the fact that NBC hasn't put out a comment at all is incredibly telling. It just feels like the new strategy in PR these days is just say nothing. Let it go.
Well, it's very telling. What they're saying by not saying anything is we're not touching this. And we know that if we put out a statement, that's going to be fresh meat for the news cycle for 24 more hours. We're just battening down the hatches until it blows over. So they're waiting for it to blow over because it's been 2 full days now since he issued that awful tweet, and so nothing's. Some people, I mean, he's Teflon. He is untouchable. He checks all the boxes. He does, Hall of Fame. He's untouchable.
But I really do think it's almost a strategy now because at ESPN basically with the Dana White thing. Where they basically just said, we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to comment on it. Not that they're not talking about it. Some of their hosts might have said stuff. But, as a company, they basically just said, we'll just wait. It'll blow over until the next thing happens.
Well, ESPN is actually more cynical than that. ESPN told their people, we know that you guys all have social media, Twitter, whatever it is you have. Do not say anything flammable, negative about Dana White. Do not do that. It's not okay if you're an ESPN employee. Because one of their employees tweeted about it and said, hey guys, I want you to know that there's a lot I'd like to say about Dana White, but ESPN has told us we can't. So and NBC is probably in the same boat in that Tony Dungy, as I told you, there's a block of people that, he can do no wrong. That block spends money and NBC has money at stake. And so that's how it is. Money is more important than doing the right thing, especially when people that have done the wrong thing are backed by millions of people that don't understand it's wrong. They don't get it. They don't understand that hate is wrong because they think, but the Bible says you shouldn't be that way. Therefore, it's open season. No, it's not open season. It's not.
Last one. How much has he tarnished his legacy within the Indianapolis community? Do people just tune this out, or does it matter?
A little. I mean, I'm hearing from people, and we'll see how long it lasts. At the moment, there's recency bias. At the moment, it's very painful for a lot of people. Indianapolis is a somewhat bluish pocket in a very red state. Very red state. And football fans skew red, I believe. So you're asking how much Tony Dungy hurt himself in this state, even in this city, with that sport? Very little.
Gregg Doyel does a great job, columnist over at the Indianapolis Star. I appreciate you giving me some time on this Friday. Be well, and let's be in touch. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it, Jason. Thank you. Talk to you later.
And I just think he does great work. I really do. A lot of columnists are afraid to even touch some of these third rail things, but he's always been one of the more smartly outspoken, if that makes any sense. Smartly very intelligently outspoken sports columnists that I've read over the years, and I've had a lot of respect for him for a long time. And so it has been written. Mike McDaniel an hour ago on SI.com says that Tony Dungy will be on the air Saturday for the network's coverage of the playoffs. Dungy's been under fire, as a lot of people know, and NBC has just stayed quiet about it, plain and simple. It makes you wonder, though, if they'll make him make any sort of statement during the broadcast about what he put out there. We'll see. We're back with more of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Stay with us. Who is that? What? Good song. Nothing wrong with this. Thanks for being with us tonight. Getting set to put the wraps on hour number 1 of the program. The telephone number, 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. If you've got predictions on Divisional Playoff weekend, I want to hear them. At any point tonight during the program, from anywhere in America, I want to hear your predictions. If you've got any particular games that you feel strongly about, or just give me all of them, as long as you're quick. I want to hear your calls on Divisional Playoff weekend. Who's going to win? I'll give you Paige's picks coming up about an hour and 15 minutes from now on the show. I was just reading a story before we came on the air tonight, and it's one of those things that kind of makes you laugh, and it kind of says, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. Jake Paul, as everybody knows, is gotten big into the boxing world. He's, I think, 6-0 as a fighter, and he's going to be going up against Tommy Fury, Tyson Fury's younger brother, in February in, I believe, Saudi Arabia. So Jake Paul's kind of made a name for himself, and what started out kind of as a joke, now people watch him and they're like, wow, he's pretty good. But Jake Paul may have poked the wrong bear. I don't know if anything's going to come of it, and maybe Jake Paul wants something to come of it. Because look, after you get done with Tommy Fury, win, lose, or draw, well, you start wondering, where does this go for Jake Paul? He's not going to someday be fighting for, a welterweight championship or a heavyweight championship. I mean, he's just not that level of fighter. And I don't even know if he has an interest in that. But he's making lots of money on these fights, and that's great. And getting tons of publicity, and that's what he's all about. Remember, he's a former YouTuber. Or he's still a current YouTuber, I guess. But he said something that even kind of made me go, oh, you may not want to do that. So after he's done with Tyson Fury, his brother, Tommy Fury, the 26-year-old might have his sights set on somebody he should not have his sights set on. Speaking on a podcast recently, Jake Paul suggested he could take out Iron Mike Tyson in a fight. Obviously, he must be thinking about the 56-year-old version of Mike Tyson. Quote, you'd think you'd F up Mike Tyson, who is now much older, the social media star has asked. Taking a huge breath, possibly because he knows he's about to say something quite unreal, Paul answers, quote, I don't know if I'd use those words, but I would win. You would win? The interviewer asked for clarity. Before Paul can answer again, there's laughter from elsewhere in the studio. Come on, Al, you're a hater, bro, Paul says off camera. Al then answers, are you serious? As serious as a heart attack, the boxer again answers, with no sense of shame. I respect you and your brother, Al responds. You guys have delusional confidence. It's amazing. I got to tell you, a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, Tyson got in the ring with Roy Jones Jr., and this was, I guess he was 53 or 54 when this fight took place. And Tyson still scared the hell out of me then. His aggression in the ring, his punching power, his speed, the ferocity with which he got out there and competed. If I were Jake Paul, I would want nothing to do with Mike Tyson, because it could end this pseudo boxing thing that he has going on right now. They always say the last thing to go in a boxer is his punch. And if you watched Tyson in that fight, if you watched Tyson in that fight against Roy Jones, you'd understand that he could still probably knock him out. It would only take one punch. And it got me to think, I was thinking about this during the break. During their prime, who was more feared? and I know it's a tough question because fear you think of in boxing, fighting, getting knocked out, getting hurt. But in their prime, I wonder who was more feared or revered, and I know they're kind of two different words. And I asked the question, is it Mike Tyson or Michael Jordan? As an opponent, who did you fear going up against more? Was it Tyson or was it Michael Jordan? Or who were you more worried about? And I would suspect the answer by most would be Mike Tyson. We put up the poll question on my Twitter feed at the back page. Feel free to go and answer it. Tyson said, by the way, he would fight Jake Paul, but only for $1 billion. Because I guess that there was a time where they had discussed the idea of the two fighting each other. But Tyson said he'd only do it for $1 billion. I don't know, though. After these recent comments from Jake Paul, it makes you wonder if Tyson might give it one more go to get in the ring and take on Jake Paul. I gotta admit, I would probably there aren't any of these sort of gag fights, these kitschy fights that take place these days that I would even put a dime on the table to watch. I'd put some money on the table to see Mike Tyson fight against Jake Paul. Yeah. I say, and by the way, I say this respectfully because Jake Paul's actually been pretty respectable in the squared circle. In the ring, he's been really impressive. But Mike Tyson is a different animal, man. I don't care if it's 56-year-old Mike Tyson. I don't care if it's 46-year-old Mike Tyson. I don't care if it's 66-year-old Mike Tyson. That dude is still scary. When you talk about, some of one of the most feared men that's ever laced him up in any sport, the intimidation factor of facing Mike Tyson, I don't think there's anything close to it in my lifetime, really, in sports. Maybe Tiger Woods in his prime, but in golf, it's you against the course, and I don't know how much Tiger had to do with, other guys and what they do on the course. Tyson's a different animal, man. He had so many matches won before the opening bell even went off. He had opponents beat before they even got into the ring. And we're talking some of the greatest fighters to ever get into the ring. And he made them look like fools. I remember what he did to Michael Spinks. Just crumpled him up in the middle of the ring. He was as must-see. You think about Tiger Woods in his prime, and you think about must-see TV. And I don't know if there is anybody these days. Is there anything that's must-see TV for you? In fact, I'm going to put this question out there. Is there a must-see TV athlete out there anymore? Is there anybody right now that you would consider when they're on TV, you have to watch? Because I don't know if one exists right now. From anywhere in America, 1-800-224-2004. We got the top of the hour coming up. So if you call, you might be on hold for a few minutes because we'll take the calls out of the top of the hour. But is there anybody right now in all of professional sports that is must-see TV that you stop what you're doing, you have to watch? And I'm not talking about an NFL playoff game because that's different. That's watching a game because it's the playoffs and you've invested yourself into the season. I'm just talking about an individual athlete. Somebody you have to watch every time they're on. Let me ask producer Justin, working on the show tonight in Houston. You're young, which isn't a bad thing. But is there anybody that you have to watch when they're on TV? Yeah. 5-10 years ago, you were like 12. Well, who did you want to watch? All right, who though? See, I don't see any of those guys as being like must watch, especially, and I think it's trickier. I think it's trickier sometimes when it comes to the NBA because they play so many games. But like Jordan in his prime, you always wanted to watch him. It's tough with the NBA with as many games as there are, but I want to hear from you guys. 1-800-224-2004 from anywhere in America. Justin will get you lined up, and we'll take him after the top of the hour. Must-see TV athlete, the person you'll just stop everything for. I don't know if one exists anymore. We'll come back, talk about it some more in the Cash-In at SportsMap Radio. Help the vet. Keep an eye on the phones, Justin. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. It's probably just going to be the Doyel interview, the Daryl Guru Johnson interview, and Paige's Picks segment. Also, make sure the phones are on, because last night he had some issue where I don't think he knew if the phones were on. Yeah. Another hour of the show starts right now on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Good to have you with us tonight. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. I think the days, right now, I think the days of the must-see athlete, I don't think it exists. I was just talking about this at the end of the last hour. A couple of things we're taking calls on tonight. One, your predictions for NFL Divisional Playoff weekend. Tell me who you like. If you've got a really strong pick that you feel good about, tell me who and tell me why. We'll do Paige's picks 1 hour from now on the show. Programming note, we will give you Paige's picks coming up. I am 40-35 on the season. We were 3-3 last week on Paige's picks. We'll try to do better tonight. We got 4 games to choose from. I've already basically given away 2 of my picks. So that leaves 2 games for me to tell you guys about. But we'll do that coming up 1 hour from now on the show. Paige's picks here on the program. 40-35 for the year. Not bad, not great, but we're above water. And you know what? At the end of the year, that's okay. We'll take that. So we'll see how we do on Paige's picks this week. I got 2 games I feel really strongly about, and then the other 2 I'm a little more wishy-washy on. So one question we're asking tonight is, tell me who you like in the NFL Divisional Playoff round. 1-800-224-2004. The other question I pose to you tonight is about must-see athletes. I was just talking at the end of the last hour how Jake Paul says he thinks he can beat Mike Tyson. Somebody just tweeted at me, actually, a couple of moments ago. The Doochton tweeted at me, listening to the show in Denver. I asked the question online, who is the most feared athlete? Who is the more feared or revered athlete? Is it Mike Tyson in their prime, Mike Tyson or Michael Jordan? And this person responded, is this a real question? 80% of people are still afraid of Mike Tyson. So well played. Thank you very much. Is there a must-see athlete left? Is there any? Now, look, people will watch games. It's a form of entertainment. Maybe you got money on it, whatever it may be. But is there a must-see athlete that you have to watch? You know, for a long time, for me, it was Tiger Woods. Anytime Tiger was on, frankly, even now, anytime Tiger is on, I'm still watching. If Tiger's playing the Masters, I am locked in for every shot that he hits come April at the Masters. Look, there's a golf tournament out here in Palm Springs, where I live, Palm Springs, California. If Tiger Woods were there, I'd be there every single day following him around the course. He's not there. Ask me how many times I've gone out and watched the American Express. I haven't. Now, is it tough because I host a talk show every day and driving out to the course and coming back and all that stuff and hosting a show? It's kind of a pain in the you-know-what? Yes, and that's part of the reason I haven't gone. But I can guarantee you, if Tiger Woods were out there, I'd find a way to get out there every day and watch some of his golf before I come on here and do the show. And it's really interesting. I think we live in an era right now without a must-see athlete. And I don't think there's ever been a time in my life where that existed. When Michael Jordan played, he was must-see TV. With Tiger Woods on the court, he was must-see TV. Because you always wanted to see what he was going to do. You know who I think of when I think of must-see TV? This is going to sound stupid to some people. You know who I think of? When Jeremy Lin had his 1 year of prime with the Knicks, that first year of Lin's sanity, there's a great documentary out about that right now. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I hear it's terrific. and I've seen him talking about it on different talk shows. But that guy, when he had that 2 or 3 month stretch for the Knicks, I was actually was I in New York at that time? No, I was in San Francisco. I was living in San Francisco. His second year in the league, I was on the East Coast. But I got to tell you, Jeremy Linsanity, that was must-see TV. For as short as it was, as quick as it was, Jeremy Lin was must-see TV. It doesn't exist now. There is not a single thing that I would stop everything I'm doing. Now, again, understanding I talk about sports for a living. So, on a Friday night, if I want to go see a movie, I can't because I got to watch a game. Or on a Saturday or Sunday when my husband's saying, "Hey, let's go out and watch, let's go out on and hit the trails and go hiking, or let's go do this," I have to say no because I have to watch the game. But I'm talking about just as a casual fan. I don't think there's a must-see TV athlete that anybody wants to watch right now. LeBron, at this stage of his career? No. And I don't know even if at his prime LeBron was sort of must-see TV, because with Jordan, you'd watch because you just want to see if he's going to go for 50. I guess Aaron Judge for a little while this year. Was must-see TV, but again, it was because he was chasing a record. If not for him chasing the record, are you watching Aaron Judge in a regular season game against Kansas City in June? No, you're not. 1-800-224-2004 from anywhere in America. Hello to our friends listening on 97.1 The Freak in Dallas. I say this. Luka is probably, and I've said this before, this isn't me pandering to my Dallas audience. I've said this before. I think Luka might be the closest thing to must-see TV that there is in sports right now. That when he's on, you watch. Especially right now in this era of the NBA when guys are throwing up 50 burgers left and right. Luka might be the closest thing there is to must-see TV. And it's not just his ability to score. It's his ability to get off a shot anytime he wants. And I was talking about this the other night with my husband. We were watching the game, and I said, watch how slowly he plays the game. In a game where, the speed is electric going up and down the floor in the NBA. That guys this size can get up and down the floor so fast. It feels like 5 steps in there, get from one end of the floor to the other. Luka plays this game at a plodding pace compared to a lot of guys around the league. But you watch him play the game at this slow speed. And they've always said, it's always been said, the great ones know how to slow it down in their mind, or they can watch it and see things develop in ways that a lot of other players can't. The great ones can do that. Luka doesn't only see it that way, he plays the game that way. He plays it at a slower pace, and he can, because it allows him to see things that other people don't see. I watched him make a pass tonight. The guy missed the shot, but I watched him make a pass tonight, and you're just sitting there going, how did he do that? How is he able to see that? How is he able to physically make the basketball go to that perfect spot and set up that shot? By the way, 34 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists for Luka tonight as the Mavericks snap a 3-game skid, 115-90 over the Heat. Both of those teams now 25 and 22 on the year. We've got our usual live betting. I have not given you a pick tonight yet. Warriors get a good win tonight in Cleveland. That's a good win for the Warriors coming off that tough loss in Boston. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The Warriors are starting to come around. Watch out in the second half. I don't even need to look at his schedule. The Warriors are 23 and 23. Okay, they're 46 games into an 82-game schedule. There's 36 games left. Okay? it would not shock me that if in those final 26 games, the Warriors went 23-13. Would not shock me at all. If they won 66, 2/3 of, basically their final 36 games. They're starting to come around. You're starting to see it. And they won tonight without Curry. And they won tonight without Klay Thompson. They got 32 from Jordan Poole tonight. And even Ty Jerome chipped in 22. I mean, that's a good win for the Warriors tonight in Cleveland. Of course, the Cavaliers were without Donovan Mitchell. It's a Friday night NBA game. Friday night NBA game. You know how many people paying big money to go see this game in Cleveland. And what do they get? They get the backups for the Warriors and the backups for the Cavaliers. Ah, man, it is tough. And you know what? I'll give credit to Scott Van Pelt the other night. He had on the GM, Bob Myers, the general manager of the Warriors, on, and he asked him flat out, how do you keep doing this? How do you these TV rights deals with the NBA and ESPN and TNT, they're going to come up soon. And if I'm ESPN and TNT, I'm not giving you guys this money that we've been giving you over the years because you're not giving us a representative product. We'll try to get a live bet for you coming up on the other side. It's the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Good to have you with us tonight. The telephone number, as always, 1-800-224-2004, 1-800-224-2004. Hit me up on Twitter as well if you're feeling like it, at the back page. Again, on Twitter, at the back page. Daryl Guru Johnson, my buddy, will join me coming up in 15 minutes. He is in the most interesting spot. And I don't know how you thread this needle, but I'm sure he's doing it. And knowing him, he's probably doing it in a pretty creative way. He gets to host middays on 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. But here's the thing. He's a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. So how do you do a talk show in San Francisco every day when you're a Cowboys fan and then you got to play him in the playoffs? I can't wait to hear how he does it. Daryl Guru Johnson, my old buddy from my stomping grounds in San Francisco at 95.7 The Game, will join us coming up in 14 minutes, and we'll get a thought on this weekend's games, and maybe we'll be able to get him to give some lines. He loves giving out picks online. So we'll see what he has to say about this weekend's games. NBA going on right now. Live betting advice for you here on the show. Now, we only give live betting advice when we have good live betting advice to give. Memphis and the Lakers right now, they are at the half in Los Angeles. The Grizzlies on top of the Lakers, 53-49. Lakers plus 6.5. We like it. We like it. Bang the Lakers plus 6.5. And I'll go a step further than that. 225.5 is the total. I think you got to go with the under there. Lakers plus 6.5 and under 225.5. If you want to do it as a parlay, go ahead. But I like the Lakers. The Lakers plus 6.5 and under 225.5. Lakers have been on the wrong end of some tough losses. And they could lose this game, by the way, and you'll still win the bet because they are down 53-49 and getting 6.5. They can lose by 1 or 2, and you will still wind up winning the bet. And right now, the teams have combined for 102 points at the half, and the total is 225.5. So unless there is a huge scoring barrage in the second half, which there hasn't been anything in the first half of this game that would lead you to believe that, then I think the Lakers plus 6.5, under 225.5 is a good bet tonight. Go and get it. We've been really good on live betting this year. That's all I'm going to tell you. First half stats, LeBron, 11 points, 4 rebounds, no assists, oddly enough. Did have a couple of blocks. The only other player in double figures is Russell Westbrook with 10. For the Grizzlies, as you would expect, Ja Morant. A really balanced attack for the Grizzlies in the first half. Nobody had double figures, but a whole bunch of guys are in the scoring column, including Ja Morant, who has 6. And of all the people in the world, if I had told you to guess who's leading the Grizzlies in scoring at the half, I don't think a single person would call in and say it's Steven Adams. But that's who it is. Steven Adams is leading the way in scoring for the Grizzlies in the first half. He has 9 points. I don't think that let me put it this way. If that's the case when the game ends, then something's going to be wrong and the Grizzlies probably will not have won this game. Just saying. A note on something we talked about last night on the show. The Gators, that being Florida, the University of, have released Jaden Rashada from his national letter of intent. So he is basically a college football free agent now. We talked about this last night on the show. Highest rated signee in the Gators 2023 class asked for his release after a reported $13 million name, image, and likeness package fell through. So he has been released from his national letter of intent by Florida. He can now sign with another team. It should be noted, state law prohibits universities in Florida from providing or arranging NIL compensation. So third parties are making these deals. The Gator Collective was the one that was supposedly making this deal with Jaden Rashada, which was to be paid out over 4 years. So he basically was going to sign with the Florida Gator. I mean, it really is pro sports now for some athletes. And again, this is the problem with this. This is only going to go to the popular sports. You know, the women's rowing team at Florida, and I don't even know if one exists, or women's volleyball at Florida, they're not getting these kinds of deals. The Associated Press reports the Gator Collective terminated its agreement with Rashada, which was to be paid out. So it would have been a 4-year deal for $13 million. And again, it just seems so weird to be saying this when we talk about college athletics. He never enrolled in classes, asked for the release earlier this week. He's the number 27 player in the ESPN 300. And now he is the highest-ranked uncommitted prospect in the 2023 class. National Signing Day is February 1st. He's from the Bay Area. Now, I should ask Daryl Guru Johnson about him because he is a Bay Area guy. He originally was going to go to Miami. Then he flipped his commitment to Florida because the money was supposedly going to be there. Now the money isn't there, and that's the end of that. So the Jaden Rashada deal is done as far as Florida is concerned. It'll be interesting to see where he plays his college football next year. Who could afford him? Hey, but see, here's the thing. Now, if nobody ponies up the dough, where does he go? You know, I just wonder if the money doesn't magically appear now, where does a Jaden Rashada go and play his college football next year? He's got to go somewhere. You can't sit out. You're going to have to be playing somewhere. So where does he go? Be interesting to see. Denver just keeps rolling, by the way, tonight. They are, putting a hurting on the Pacers. 134-105. I don't know if any of this translates into them, winning an NBA title this year. I heard, who's the guy on ESPN? Legler. Tim Legler was on with Scott Van Pelt the other night, and he's in the last couple of weeks he's come around on two teams as being potentially NBA title teams, Denver and Memphis. I mean, Denver's 32-13, Memphis is 31-13, and both look like title contenders. But when you consider their track records, do they suddenly make that quantum leap this year past the Warriors of the world, past the Suns of the world? And I know the Suns are off to a slow start. Frankly, if the playoffs started today, the Suns wouldn't even be in. But I'm interested to see if the Nuggets and Grizzlies, if this regular season performance translates to them being title contenders now. I'm still going to say, till I see somebody beat the Warriors in a 7-game series, nobody's beating the Warriors in a 7-game series. I have to see it. And then there's a drop-off after Denver and Memphis into the Sacramentos and the Pelicans of the world. Pelicans have been fighting some injuries right now. They've lost 7 of 10. The Mavericks don't have the horses around Luka to wind up, being in a position to win a title this year. Utah has been one of the surprises of the league. The fact that they're a top 6 seed right now is nothing short of a miracle. The Clippers with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard not ever being on the floor at the same time. I don't know how you could expect anything of that team. The Warriors, to me, are getting right now. And I think the second half is going to be all about Golden State. I really do. They've got 36 games left, and I think they put up a big number, like 23-13, 24-12. I could see them going 24-12 in their last 36. And 12 games over 500 at the end of the year is going to put them in the top 6, probably the top 5, maybe the top 4. And then you're in a good position if you're Golden State in that spot. Minnesota's playing without Karl Anthony Towns. Oklahoma City has been a huge surprise. They're number 10 in the West right now. The playoffs started today. Oklahoma City would be in, and Phoenix would not. The Lakers would not. Can you imagine? I mean, look at the 5 teams that would be out in the West right now. Phoenix, Portland, the Lakers, the Spurs, and obviously the Rockets, who are going to struggle. 4 of those 5 teams in years past, you would have never thought of them not being in the postseason. They'd all be out. Daryl Guru Johnson from 95.7 The Game joins us on the other side. I'm Jason Page. This is the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Rolling along on this Friday edition of the show. You heard me talk about it a little while ago and getting into wake up call. Oh my God. They're so good. They really are. It's not cheap, but it's really good. No, you can order them anywhere. Yeah, you can go online. Good to have you back with us on this Friday edition of the show. Well, look, there's a lot of great playoff games this weekend, let's be honest, but the best is the last on Sunday, and that's the Cowboys in Santa Clara to take on the San Francisco 49ers. Right now, I still can't get over this line. I got to talk to Daryl Guru Johnson, who does a great job hosting middays, 95.7 The Game with my man, Matt Steinmetz. Guru joins us on the line. First of all, are you going to the game?
Yeah, I'm going. Now, I had an option to go as the media, and in 1992, Jay, the NFC Championship game at Candlestick, I was there. The Cowboys won. That was the last time, and I just feel obligated not to go as media. I'm driving. I got my Cowboy jersey on now, and I'm wearing it, and I'm going as a fan. To answer your question, my friend, yes.
This is crazy. And I was telling this to my audience, and I got to ask you this. As somebody who's a lifelong Cowboys fan, how do you handle this week as a talk show host, hosting a show in San Francisco on 95.7 The Game? How do you get through it?
Listen, I'm taking a lot of hate, but I didn't go Harry High School. And what I mean by that, had this been the Jimmy Johnson, Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin Cowboys, I would be having my chest stuck out. Because I would know before that game started and kicked off, Dallas was going like a chessboard. The Bishops, they were going to be in place. And if they lost, you tip your cap. Jason, this is a joke. The line is a joke.
Thank you.
I am scorned. I keep it real. Dallas is not ready. We're not smart enough. And I'm so down on Dak Prescott. Monday, that shocked me. And let me just tell you and your listeners this, Jay. The Cowboys didn't play an 8-9 Tampa Bay team. They played themselves, and they shocked me. And they shocked me in the sense that it was a stage. It was another opportunity. People were doubting them. So I'm still stunned and shivering that they won. But you are not going to stop McCaffrey. The Niners got 150 on the ground 10 games in a row. If you follow Dallas, we're a fast defense. But we have trouble stopping the run. I just don't see it, Jason. People got mad at me today because I wasn't going Harry High School. Give me a D. Give me an A. Because I know, Jay, it's just, I said I'm going to a funeral, and I'll leave it at that.
I got to tell you, and I'm so glad to hear you sort of, confirm my thoughts. When they won the game, but when they won the game, when Dallas won on Monday night, I immediately clicked refresh on my the FanDuel Sportsbook. And when I saw the opening line at 4.5, I said, "Are you kidding me? How on earth is this thing only 4.5?" I said, "This thing will be at 6.5 easy before the end of the week." It went down. It's 3.5. I can't for the life of me figure out where these people are getting this line from. If I had a house, if I had a pot to pee in and a window to throw it out of, which I have neither of right now, I would put it all on the 49ers. I can't understand this line. Do you?
Jay, I don't, and I got an old saying in the podcast, liquidate all assets. And I'll tell you this, Jay, if they say, hey, what do you know about Jason Page? He's a student handicapping. Jay, what are we missing? Now, I will say this. Brock Purdy, the story, he's a rookie, Jay. They were down to Seattle at half, and that blew me away. Then I go to the Vegas game, which was not a playoff game, with Stidham, who was hitting Devontae Adams, who was using Waller. I'm still shocked. Niners won that in OT, but how did it get there? So do you think we're underselling Dallas, Micah Parsons? Because this is one thing I noticed, and I watched the game again, both the Niners and Dallas. Purdy got away with, I call it the skedaddle. It's like college to where he doesn't know where he's going. He rolls out, does this like unorthodox spin, and chucks it out of bounds. Then I'm saying, okay, can Dan Quinn use DeMarcus Lawrence? Can he use Parsons on the edges to keep Purdy in the pocket? And maybe we'll see those high throws. Maybe he'll throw a turnover, and Cinderella will have to return the slippers. But outside of that, Jay, my friend, and I'm a diehard, but I'm a realist, I don't see it.
I don't see it either. Talking with Daryl Guru Johnson, host 95.7 The Game in San Francisco, joining us here on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. The argument that I made, and I'll tell you how I best summarized this game. I look at it like poker, okay? And in a game, in a hand of poker, sometimes if you're one player, you got, 4 or 5 different outs, a bunch of different ways you can get to the winning hand.
Right.
And sometimes you only got a one-outer. For me, the Niners have so many ways they could win this game, whereas I only see one out for the Cowboys. And you just mentioned him. It's Brock Purdy. If the only way they win this game is if they can win the turnover battle by 2 and Dak plays a perfect game. That's the only way that I think they win this game in Santa Clara on Sunday, is if they get to Purdy and Purdy starts realizing, oh my God, I'm Mr. Irrelevant. I was the last guy picked in the draft. Maybe I really don't belong in this moment. And again, you only need it to happen in one game. This isn't baseball where it's got to happen 4 out of 7 or 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 3 times. It's not the NBA where you play in a best of 7. You only got to get them for one game. And that's the small sliver of hope that I give Dallas in this game, is that they can get the one-outer, which is get to Brock Purdy and make him start to feel the pressure that he has yet to feel really since coming into the league.
It's amazing, Jay, and we talked about the lack of strength of schedule, which I don't buy from a Niner standpoint. You play who's on the schedule, but I get it. But that still, to me, technically wouldn't mean anything. You're a student of the game, and so am I, Jay. You just nailed everything, and I feel like, you and I could have shown up to the Metroplex this week, and the Cowboys would have said, hey, what you here for? A left cornerback. I mean, they don't even know what's going on at the left cornerback position outside of Diggs. You got away with it Monday, but that to me is like, that equals 35, 40 points automatically. And again, I took some heat from not being positive, but Jason, you're hitting on all cylinders. You're touching on all points. But again, I just can't shake Seattle with Walker on the ground, a 9-yard run to start the game, and they ran. They chipped Bosa, who, for his standards, was relatively quiet. So, Dan Quinn against Kyle Shanahan, I got my popcorn. But, Jay, I'm one of those guys that, hey, I'm going to feel some pain and hurt that I've done for the last 30 years if Dallas loses. But my pocketbook will have the mumps because I'm going all in on the Niners.
Yeah, I am too.
I just am.
Yeah,
I'm shocked.
I agree. Nick, I had Nick Ferguson on the show last night, former safety with the Broncos, who's in Denver. He hosts the Touchdown Denver podcast. We had him on the show last night, and he brought up something interesting. We were talking about the win over Tampa Bay, and he said what was shocking to him was Tampa Bay's defense was so bad and so slow in trying to get to Dak that Dak was able to go through all of his progressions, and really take his time going through those progressions, which is why you didn't see the 2 turnover game that you see so many times from Dallas. It's because he had all the time in the world, even when he was on the run. He's finding guys wide open. He's not going to have that luxury. And I think you see the return. I think you see the return of turnovers in this game from Dak.
No doubt. And I'll say this. What about last year's game? Dallas is without Randy Gregory, who made some bonehead plays in that wild card game last year at Dallas. Dak was awful coming off a week. The Cowboys organization was so insecure. They played their starters in Philly and scored 50 points, thinking, okay, Dak will be ready to go, and they scored 17. Now the Niners, Ayuk, he's coming of age. You got McCaffrey. Purdy is not a statue like Jimmy was. I just don't see it. And I got to say this. I don't know if you're familiar with the former scout. He's on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, Odyssey Station, Brian Broaddus. He's not a homer. He's very astute in his breakdowns of games. And he said this, Jason, I almost crashed my car. He said Tampa Bay's defense is more complex than the Niners, and that the Niners can be blocked. Now, that's not what made me go off the road, but I'm like, hey, Brian, this is not 2 years ago Tampa Bay's defense. They're 8-9 coming into that game Monday for a reason, but don't you dare tell me, again, don't you dare tell me that this Niner defense is simple compared to Tampa. Tampa were like mannequins. They didn't blitz. And you're right. Dak had, I won't take anything from him, Jay. He had all day to throw.
Yeah.
And when he figured it out, he knew it.
Yeah.
But the first two series of that game, Dallas looked 3 and out. Dak had the open lip look like, what's going on? Dude, where's my car? And I expect that to be, the title of the jam from the gate.
I got to run. I'm out of time in the segment.
Hey,
Listen,
you know where I'm
have
at.
fun.
I love you, man.
All right, I'll talk to you.
Talk to you
Go
soon.
win some money. We'll come back, wrap up the hour next. During the interview was like, man, we talked to this guy, Brian brought us from the Odyssey station in Dallas, and I'm just cringing going, oh no, don't mention the competitor in Dallas. Just sitting there going, no, Guru. He doesn't realize we're on in Dallas. I'm like, no, don't say that. Yeah. Huh? I think so. Justin, start of next hour, I'll throw to it, play the normal open, and then I'll throw to Paige's picks like we did last week. Okay. Correct. I'll come back. I'll talk for a minute or two, and then we'll do Paige's picks. 15 minutes till the top of the hour. The cash-in does continue. Thank you to the man with the great pipes. That is the great Chad Erickson, who introduces me every night on the show. So we've got a 75-67 game. So much for the fact that we kind of liked the under in the second half, which I think was 225.5. Grizzlies and Lakers are putting up some points in the third quarter right now. So keep an eye on that game. 75-67, Grizzlies on top of the Lakers. We gave you the Lakers plus 6.5, and we gave you under 225.5 in the second half of this game. So we will see how things shake out there. Sacramento on top of Oklahoma City. A matchup of two very evenly matched, I shouldn't say evenly matched, a matchup of two surprisingly good teams this year. If you had said before the season started that Oklahoma City would be a 10 seed more than halfway through the season, I would have had you drug tested. And here they are. They're the 10 seed as of right now. Ahead of Phoenix in the West. Ahead of the Lakers in the West. It's kind of surprising. Those are the two games that remain right now, and we will keep an eye on those. Coming up after the top of the hour, you wait for it all week. You set your clock by it. You put alarms on. You get alerts because you're ready for it. Paige's Picks coming up at the top of the hour. We will try to hand out some winners for you on the NFL Divisional Playoff round. We will pick all four games. Some cases it might be the spread. Some cases it might be the total. I've already said all week there are two picks that I love. And that's where we're going to leave it. So that's coming up a little later on in the show. Just after the top of the hour, in fact. Boy, are the Saudis busy. I'd love to have, the next time somebody asks, hey, what are your goals in life? My goals are just to have Saudi Arabia kind of money. I just want to have, that is the ultimate in FU money. Saudi Arabia is the ultimate in FU money. Just give me that stupid kind of money where it doesn't matter. I could do whatever I want. If I want to set wads of cash on fire, I could. That's kind of what they're doing with Live Golf, isn't it? So we told you, we all know about the Live Golf stuff by now. We joked the other night about the fact that Live Golf is reportedly going to do a deal with the CW to air Live Golf this year. But it gets better. We talked, I think it was last Friday on the show, we may have talked about it. The fact that there were these rumors out there that WWE was going to sell the company to the same Saudi-funded, the government-funded organization that bought Live Golf. That the investment fund, the Saudi investment fund, was going to buy the WWE. Now, that story has been walked back, but nobody is saying it isn't going to happen. It's just that it hasn't happened yet. That's what we know, that it hasn't happened yet. Well, apparently Saudi Arabia may not stop at Live Golf, the WWE. They want it all. Name your price. Saudi Arabia is reportedly trying to buy Formula One for $20 billion. Let me hear you again. Saudi Arabia tried to buy F1 for $20 billion with a B dollars. But how about this? Liberty Media said no. Did you even know that Liberty Media owns F1? I didn't. But again, when your country is the home to the third most valuable natural resource reserve in the world, you can do this. So this year, Saudi Arabia, the story is on jalopnik.com. Saudi Arabia tried to get F1 out to the Middle East. It's going to be a fixture on the F1 calendar as an event. for at least the rest of this decade, and now they try and buy the entire sport. A new report from Bloomberg, they tried to take over the top-tier motorsport. According to the site's country's sovereign wealth fund tried to buy Formula One from its current owners, Liberty Media, for well above $20 billion. It's not even just $20 billion, but well above that number. Saudi Arabia has spent more than $1.5 billion investing in various sports franchises in recent years. According to a report from human rights organization Grant Liberty, the nation has backed everything from chess and golf to tennis and horse racing in an attempt to wash over its, well, less than stellar human rights record. I think that's probably putting it mildly. So far, the country's put more than $600 million into Formula One Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which is a fixture on the sports calendar until 2030. So far, this has seen F1 host 2 events in the kingdom. Now the nation's looking to up the motorsport game. They made an attempt, or considered an attempt, to purchase F1 outright from Liberty Media. And by the way, Liberty Media in 2017 bought F1. I mean, this is crazy. Liberty Media in 2017 bought F1 for $4.6 billion. And basically 5.5 years later, they were offered over $20 billion and said no. Liberty Media said they were not interested in selling it. So, see what happens. You say no the first time to get a better. I mean, you can only imagine that Saudi Arabia might say, you know what, we'll give you more. We can up the price. Name your price. This is the deal is the latest attempt from Saudi Arabia to try and entice F1 out east. Last week, Jalopnik.com reported on a move from the country to try and convince teams like McLaren and Aston Martin to move to Saudi Arabia's new Neom City, which is currently under construction. Yeah, we're just building a new city. This is what you could do in Saudi Arabia. You know what we need? Let's just build a new city. Can you imagine? Yeah, it's crazy. I've never been to Saudi Arabia. So I'm not, from an aesthetics standpoint, from a beauty standpoint, I can't speak to any of that. But I just can't fathom the ability to just say, hey, you know what we need? We need a new city. Go build me a new city. Amazing. Nations also put tons of money into English Premier League soccer with Newcastle United FC. They got a big boxing match. I just mentioned they got the Jake Paul, Tommy Fury match that's going to be held there. They get the WWE there once a year. Honey, we got to go to Saudi Arabia. Oh wait, they don't like people like me there. Keeping our eyes on that Grizzlies-Lakers game. We'll continue to keep tabs on it. You get an update, I'm sure, on your local station at the top of the hour. Grizzlies on top of the Lakers, 85-75. A minute 25 to go in the third. We gave you under 225.5 on the total. We told you to take the Lakers plus 6.5. It's the NBA. A 10-point deficit is nothing. We're not sweating it yet. We haven't even gotten to the fourth yet. You're not allowed to sweat until you get to the fourth quarter. Although you do have 160 points now scored, and we haven't gotten to the fourth quarter yet. But as I always tell you, scoring slows down in the fourth quarter. But every time we say that with the Lakers, the game winds up going to overtime, and then we wind up getting screwed. So I'm not getting too crazy. It's tough for the Lakers without Anthony Davis, though. Just trying to tread water until they get Davis back, and then much like the Warriors, I still think you're going to get a situation. I still think you're going to get a situation where in the second half of the year, you're going to get the better version of the Lakers. I really do. I think second half of the year, you're going to get the better version of the Lakers. And I do think they'll wind up being a top 10 team. Did Shannon Sharpe and Ja Morant's dad get into a shouting match during this game tonight? Oh, we got to check this out during the top of the hour. So apparently, Shannon Sharpe and Ja Morant's dad got into it at the Lakers game tonight. Oh, I got to check this out. We're coming back with more of the Cash In. Final hour right around the corner.
A little bit of an incident here courtside at the Crypto.com arena. Dylan Brooks was having words with Shannon Sharpe.
And you see Steven Adams comes over to protect his guy along with the supporting cast. And then Shannon Sharpe still talking. And T. Morant, John Morant's dad, comes over. Had an opportunity to talk to T. Morant. And he said, my blood pressure didn't go up a bit. Nothing but love and respect for Shannon Sharpe. It's a bunch of guys talking a bunch of trash.
Just silly. I mean, for it to get like that here at an NBA game. Hopefully that's over with.
The good thing you see, everybody's still in the building and still in their seat.
Right.
Oh, my God. That's insane.
For a dull moment in the NBA because...
Can you imagine?
Moment in the NBA because...
That's crazy. Love Shannon Sharpe. Dude's awesome. Yeah. Give me some bowl highlights. Bowl.
He'll drive, step through. Oh my goodness, bowl happens. Bowl started by Trey Murphy. He'll drive, step through. Oh my goodness, bowl happens. Bowl started by Trey Murphy. He'll drive, step through.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my goodness, bowl happens.
How that guy's not playing like 36 minutes a night, I don't know. He's just, he really is. He's a human cheat code. There's no way a guy 7'2" should be able to do the things with the basketball on the floor the way he does. Just ridiculous.
Bowl started by Trey Murphy. He'll drive, step through.
On the run. He's caught in the air, but he's, hey. Good move. Larry on the poster.
a Friday/Saturday edition of the show. Thank you for being with us. Oh, man. We'll get to Paige's picks in a minute. Let me tell you something. Shannon Sharpe is still jacked. Dude looks like he could still play if he wanted to. He's 54 years old. You know him from that show with Skip Bayless in the mornings over on Fox Sports, or FS1 as it's called. And I mean, tonight at the Laker game, you've got Shannon Sharpe and Ja Morant's father, T. Morant, getting into an altercation on the sideline of the Lakers-Grizzlies game. I will let Mike Breen sort of describe what went down tonight on the court. Take a listen to this.
In the NBA, because after the buzzer sounded, there was a little bit of an incident here courtside at the Crypto.com arena. Dylan Brooks was having words with Shannon Sharpe.
And you see Steven Adams comes over to protect his guy along with the supporting cast. And then Shannon Sharpe still talking.
And let me tell you something. Shannon Sharpe, Steven Adams is 7 feet tall. He comes walking over towards Shannon Sharpe, and Shannon Sharpe doesn't walk backwards. Shannon Sharpe is still leaning forwards. Shannon Sharpe ain't backing down from anybody. And then Ja Morant's dad comes over and gets into it with him. Nobody got thrown out. And you know what? I'll give credit because Mark Jackson said that on the broadcast. The good news was nobody got thrown out, which was the good side. But apparently Dylan Brooks had words for Shannon Sharpe on his way to the locker room. Sharpe wasn't into it. So he gestures over to Dylan Brooks, who ain't having none of it. Steven Adams goes towards Sharpe, and then a whole bunch of security guards and players, and they're playing the feud, and it's great. And then T. Morant, the father of Grizzlies point guard Ja Morant, came in and directed his attention towards Shannon Sharpe. T. Morant said that his blood pressure didn't go up a bit. Nothing but love and respect for Shannon Sharpe. Only in the NBA, right? They didn't want this smoke, Sharpe told ESPN's Dave McMenamin at halftime. They do all that talking and jockeying, and I ain't about that jockeying. It started with Dylan Brooks. I said he was too small to guard LeBron. He said, F me. I said, F you back. He started to come at me, and I said, you don't want these problems. And then Ja came out of nowhere talking. He definitely didn't want these problems. Then the dad came, and he obviously didn't want no problems. But I wanted anything they had. Don't let these fools fool you now. Man, somebody got to get to Shannon Sharpe and calm him down a little bit, though, right? I mean, dude, you're at an NBA game. This isn't fight night at the Forum. You know, this isn't some nightclub with, fighting over women or, somebody spilled a drink on you. This is an NBA game, dude. You don't get up and threaten to throw down with people. Good grief. Later on in this hour, about 25 minutes from now, our 2-for-1 interview tonight. It is with the great Gregg Doyel, sports columnist for the Indianapolis Star, talking about Tony Dungy, who will be on the Saturday night NBC broadcast, or Saturday afternoon NBC broadcast of the Divisional Playoff game, despite the fact that he has made some interesting comments both in person at the Right for Life rally earlier today in Washington, D.C., and then on Twitter earlier this week where he posted a tweet that he then had to delete. We'll get into all of it with Gregg Doyel coming up a little later on in the hour. But right now, it's time to do my favorite thing we do all week on this show. We're going to give you some winners with Paige's Picks. Let's do it. What do you say, Justin? We're going to give you some winners. Come on. Game number 1, Jacksonville and Kansas City. The biggest spread of the week. Jacksonville getting 8.5 on the road in Kansas City. And look, do I see backdoor cover possibilities? It's very hard for me to see any scenario where Jacksonville wins this game. But at the same time, I think they're going to play with, sort of a reckless abandon. Nobody expects you to win. You're already ahead of schedule for where this franchise thought it would be this year. I think they might pull some interesting tricks from up their sleeve. But I'm not going to give you a winner on the spread. My winner is the total. I think it goes over. The total is 52.5. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. I think KC could score 30-plus on their own rather easily. Could get some garbage scores late. Over 52.5 is my pick, game number 1. I wouldn't be shocked if it was at 36 or 37 by halftime. Take the over 52.5, Jags and the Chiefs. Game number 2 takes us to Cheesesteak Land, Philadelphia. Giants and the Eagles, the city of brotherly love. This was one. I got 2 locks this week that I love. I said as long as this line stays above 7, you have to take the Giants. They're getting 7.5. I don't need to tell you their record against the spread. You know it already if you bet on football. They are cover machines. I think the Giants could win the game. I don't think they will. If you asked me to take, Gregg Larson, the program director at SportsMap Radio, if you said I could have Gregg Larson's bank account and just take all of his money and put it on a team, I'm probably not putting it on the Giants because I want Craig to make some money. I'm taking the Eagles if it's about the money line, but if you're talking about 7.5 points, I think the Giants stay within a touchdown. I could see a 31-24, 27-20 sort of game. I think they're going to put a scare into the Eagles. I think when midway through the fourth quarter, this game will be in doubt. Giants plus 7.5. The total is 48.5. I think it's going to be right around that number, which is why the Giants plus 7.5 is our pick. Game number 2. The Bengals and the Bills. Cincinnati and Buffalo. The game we were supposed to get in the second to last week of the regular season. Instead, we get it in the postseason. Reportedly, Damar Hamlin will be on the field in Buffalo on Sunday afternoon, which is going to be very emotional. Not playing, but going and visiting the team and getting people pumped up. That will be a sight to be seen for sure. The Bengals are getting plus 5.5, and this is probably the game I've struggled with the most this week. I like the Bengals plus 5.5. I don't love either. I don't love any of the bets on this game, but the Bengals plus 5.5, I think it's the only way to go. Buffalo is turnover prone. I don't think this game will be as high scoring as some people believe. 27-24, 26-23, something in that realm. Take the Bengals plus 5.5. It's the pick I am the least confident in. I'll just put that out there right now. That's game number 3. Final game. Cowboys, 49ers. If the Giants is one of my locks of the week, this is my super lock of the week. This is the one I would bet the farm on if I had one. Bet the house on if I had one. I went through all the reasons why all week. I'm not going to belabor it here. Take the 49ers minus 3.5. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. I think they win by 7-10 easily, and it could wind up being a whole lot more than that. 49ers minus 3.5. Simple as that. Your picks for Paige's picks in the divisional NFL playoff round. Over 52.5 in the Jaguars and Chiefs. Giants plus 7.5. The Bengals plus 5.5. And the 49ers minus 3.5. That is Paige's picks for the NFL Divisional Playoff round. And that's how we do it. We got more to do on this show. If you've got a pick you like for the NFL Divisional Playoff round, give it to me. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can also tweet it at me at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter, at The Back Page. Coming up in 20 minutes, Gregg Doyel joins me. We'll get some thoughts with him on the Tony Dungy story, which we've talked about quite a bit tonight on the program. So we got that coming up for you. But I feel good about Paige's picks. 3 of the 4 picks I like a lot. Like I said, it could be a 3-in-1 week. I'm not crazy about the Bengals and the Bills. Not in the total, not in the spread. But I'll take the Bengals plus 5.5 in that spot. All right, coming back. More to do. News from baseball to get to. Crazy trade. It's next on the Cash In, SportsMap Radio. Correct. And it's Daryl, D-A-R-Y-L-E. For the spelling. Wow, the Marlins traded Jose Salas. Wow, that's crazy. I only know that this guy's a really good minor league shortstop because I collect baseball cards, and he's like one of their stud prospects. But the Marlins traded this really good prospect to Minnesota in this deal today. That's a great get. It's a great get for Minnesota. Wow. Top 2 or 3. Yeah. He was, let's see, Marlins prospect. I have 3 autographed cards of his, too. Yeah. He was, let's see. Oh, did they already take him off? Yeah, they did. Let's see, Twins. LeBron James is just a freak. I mean, mean, good grief. The guy's in his 20th year. I mean, he's 37, 38 years old. And I just watched him make a drive to the basket against the Grizzlies. I mean, laying his body out. Like full on, fall on his stomach. Man, can you imagine? I mean, there's never been anybody like this. It really, and look, I don't say this. I'm not prone to hyperbole. A lot of shows will do the hyperbolic stuff and, hyperventilate over certain things. And I guess we all do that from time to time. But I watch LeBron, and I'm literally in awe of the stuff he does on the court. He has played tonight. Let's see. What's the latest on this? He's played 28 minutes so far. There's 8:15 to go in the fourth quarter, and I presume he'll play the rest of this game. So he'll play about 36 minutes tonight. By the way, Lakers trail the Grizzlies 98-93. We told you to take the under at 225.5, I believe it was. So they're at 201. So we're in a little bit of trouble on the total. But we told you to take the Lakers plus 6.5, and we're certainly in shouting range there. So worst case, it feels like we got a split coming in this game. But, I mean, to watch LeBron at this age, I mean, think about all the players you've ever seen in the history of the NBA. There's never been anybody like this. There's never been anybody in their 20th season doing the sorts of things that LeBron James is doing right now. There's nobody. There's nobody like this. He's averaging 30 points a game in his age 38 season, in his 20th year in the league. Say that out loud. Before you give me the Jordan, Kobe's, all these guys. LeBron is 38 years old. In his 20th season, he's averaging almost 30 a game, 8.5 rebounds and 7 assists. Oh, by the way, he also shoots 51% from the field. And again, I get it. We live in a different age. We live in a different age of the NBA. I get that. But he's not from this planet, man. To be in the physical condition that he is in, to be able to put yourself out there like that every night, to still be able to play with that, that sliver of reckless abandon. You just don't see guys in their 20th season doing that. And he's such a competitor. He just wants it. He wants it more than you do. He just wants it more than you do. And there's been athletes throughout the history of sports that were like that. Tiger Woods, we were talking about earlier in the show. Mike Tyson, Michael Jordan, Kobe. Guys that just wanted it more than everybody else. And it's not just what they do on the floor in games or on the golf course during a round of golf or on the ice. It's the work they put in that you don't see that allows them to do the things you do see. Amazing. Just absolutely amazing. So there was a trade in baseball today. You may have heard about it. And normally this time of year, we're not getting big trades. This was a big trade. The Marlins got a bat they needed. The Twins got an arm that they needed. So Luis Ariz, who won the AL batting title, much of that last couple of weeks spent on the bench so that he'd win that batting title, by the way. I'll just throw that little asterisk next to it. Luis Ariz is going to the Marlins in exchange for right-hander Pablo Lopez and a pair of prospects. This deal's been talked about for a while, but now it's a done deal. So the Marlins get Ariz. They added Gene Segura during the offseason, so they're trying to make some upgrades. I mean, they're in such a tough division with the Phillies, Braves, the Mets. Nationals aren't very good right now, but the Marlins had to do something. Otherwise, why would people even bother going to games in Miami? It's hard enough to get people down there to go to games. Why would you even bother if they're not going to make any upgrades? So at least Kim Eng, the general manager there, did something to try and improve this team. But they gave up a lot to get Arise. They gave up a lot. I mean, Pablo Lopez is a frontline starter. Dare I say, he is ace kind of stuff. Threw a career-high 180 innings last year, 32 starts, a 3.75 ERA. Averages 9.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. Doesn't walk a lot of guys. But say this. What the Twins got back in exchange for Arise, they didn't just get back a good pitcher. They got back, and one of the unheralded parts of this deal is a kid named Jose Salas, who is 19 years old. He was one of the top prospects in the Marlins organization. He is a pure hitter, does not strike out a lot. You're going to see him at the major league level at some point sooner rather than later. They also got a kid, a 17-year-old, named Byron Chorio, who is a center fielder, played for the Marlins Dominican Summer League team last year, hit .344 as a 17-year-old. So, I mean, this is a great deal for the Twins, who, again, in that AL Central, where nobody blows you away, I still think the White Sox, if healthy, are the best team in that division. Last year, they dealt with a lot of injuries, and I think that's a big part of the reason why they wound up missing out on the postseason. And, credit to Terry Francona's team and the Indians. They're a strong team. They're a solid team. They don't hit a lot of home runs. They're a play to contact sort of team. Base to base, station to station sort of team. Whereas if the White Sox are healthy, they've got some boppers. And they've got a strong rotation, if healthy, with Dylan Cease and Lucas Giolito. And it's a good team. It's a really good team. I think if they're healthy this year, I'll still take the White Sox in that AL Central. But this is a great deal for the Twins to get a frontline starter like Lopez. And now Arise goes to the Marlins. Strong rotation, Sandy Alcantara. And you know what? The Marlins are putting together a decent little lineup. Jazz Chisholm, who I love. Avisail Garcia they signed. Jorge Soler, they both struggled last year. So, good deals. Good. Again, you don't get big trades usually in late January during the baseball offseason, but that's a heck of a deal. And, the only thing I'll say about this is, Carlos Correa, you just signed this monster deal for 6 years to go play for the Twins. And part of the reason I assume you go there, although they had to have tipped him off that they were going to make this deal, is you go in and, if you're Carlos Correa, you got some protection in the lineup with a guy like Arise hitting in front of you. And now you just lost that protection. So there's something to be said for what that might mean for Carlos Correa and his numbers if he doesn't have that protection of Arise in the lineup, who's, again, a great contact hitter, guy who gets on base a ton even when he's, not putting the ball in play, still getting on base, doesn't strike out a lot. That's a tough loss for that lineup, but they certainly take a step up in the pitching department, adding Pablo Lopez. All right, 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. We do a lot of live betting on this show, as you know. And right now, with 5:58 to go in the fourth quarter, we are still sitting on a Lakers victory. 103-97. We have the Lakers plus 6.5. 225.5 is the total. They're at 200 now. I did bad math before when I gave you the numbers. Math was never my strong suit. I said they were at like 201 before, with like 8 minutes left. My math was off. Sorry about that. They're at 202, 225.5 is the total. We took the under on the live bet, and we took the Lakers plus 6.5. And right now, the Lakers trail 105-97. So We can officially say we're in sweat mode right now. LeBron James has 18 to lead the Lakers starters. Russell Westbrook has 24 off the bench. He's a big part of the reason why the Lakers have been able to tread water without Anthony Davis as well. Ja Morant has 20 to lead the Grizzlies. We will keep you posted. On the other side, Gregg Doyel, our 2-for-1, talking about Tony Dungy. He's a columnist for the Indianapolis Star. That's next on the Cash In at SportsMap Radio. All right. I got this on my side. You can play a normal rejoin. Normal rejoin is fine. He is a host with 95.7 The Game in San Francisco. He was my co-host when I worked in San Francisco. He was the only co-host I've ever worked with that I absolutely loved working with. Rolling along on this Friday edition of the show. You heard me talk about it a little while ago and getting into it now as well with Gregg Doyel, columnist for the Indianapolis Star. He does a terrific job
with that guy.
I've been reading his stuff for years. He wrote a great piece on former Colts head coach Tony Dungy, of course, now with NBC. Gregg, how much does this side of Dungy that we know and see now surprise you?
Well, for me personally, not much, because he's been this way, well, probably his whole life, but he's been publicly this way for years. He came out when Michael Sam played at Missouri, came out in the first openly gay
That's serious, I think, what happened, which is about as awful. Rolling along on this Friday edition of the show. You heard me talk about it a little while ago and getting into it now as well with Gregg Doyel, columnist for the Indianapolis Star. He does a terrific job. Been reading his stuff for years. He wrote a great piece on former Colts head coach Tony Dungy. Rolling along on this Friday edition. Rolling along. Rolling along. Rolling along on this Friday edition of the show. You heard me talk about it a little while ago and getting into it now as well with Gregg Doyel, columnist for the Indianapolis Star. He does a terrific job. Been reading his stuff for years. He wrote a great piece on former Colts head coach Tony Dungy, of course, now with NBC. Gregg, how much does this side of Dungy that we know and see now surprise you?
Well, for me personally, not much, because he's been this way, well, probably his whole life, but he's been publicly this way for years. He came out when Michael Sam played in Missouri, came out in the first openly gay NFL draft prospect. Dungy was on the record for whoever he was talking with, NBC, whatever, saying he wouldn't draft Michael Sam. So, and that was 8 years ago, maybe, if not more. So he is who he is, and he hasn't, some people hide who they are. Dungy doesn't have the sense to hide this side of him.
No, he certainly doesn't. You bring up a great point in your column, which if folks haven't read, you can hit me on my Twitter link at the back page. Tony Dungy's son committed suicide, and it was an awful story. I remember at the time I was working at Sirius, I think, when it happened, which is about as awful a thing as a parent could go through. Understanding the suicide rates amongst the LGBTQ plus community, which is something you wrote about in your column, the way we do, it almost makes what he does all the more infuriating and hard to understand for somebody that calls himself a Christian.
Yeah, I mean, it's baffling and heartbreaking and disgusting, really, on so many different levels. I mean, just pick any of those ideas you threw out there, including and the way I feel about things, leading with the fact that he's a Christian. I don't understand people who spout off their views and kind of hold it up as a shield, like this is my get out of jail free card. I'm a good person, and yet they would say something as hateful as what Dungy said, and Lord knows he's not alone. And not knowing or not caring, I'm not sure which is worse, the impact that not can have but will have on some of the most vulnerable, fragile people in our society. People that are LGBTQ are questioning, or what. It's not easy, and I've seen it firsthand, so it's infuriating, to say the least.
It is. It's perplexing, and I don't know if you saw it today, but he was at the Right for Life March. And for people who didn't hear it, and you'll be able to hear it too, this was Tony Dungy invoking Damar Hamlin's cardiac arrest as he calls on Americans to pray for an end to abortion. Listen to this.
Well, those prayers were answered. Damar's recovering now. He's home. He's been released from the hospital. But what's the lesson in that? An unbelievable thing happened that night. A professional football game with millions of dollars of ticket money and advertising money on the line. That game was canceled. Why? Because a life was at stake. And people wanted to see that life saved. Even people who aren't necessarily religious got together and called on God. Well, that should be encouraging to us, because that's exactly why we're here today.
I mean, this is, listen, this is even for Tony Dungy, this is a stretch, Gregg.
Well, yeah, he's out to lunch, but the thing is, and there have been times in my life where I kind of wish I was in that camp, just because it must be nice. It must be nice to, and I guess that's what faith is. It must be nice to be that out to lunch, that the whole idea of prayers were answered. Damar Hamlin is alive because prayers were answered. I can't get behind that, and not because I'm a hateful person, because I'm a loving person. And I can't get behind the idea that prayers were answered so Damar was saved. But how many people die every day and the prayers weren't answered? What does that say to their parents? And I can't get behind the fact that the power of prayer is actually changing lives down here. Because what about all the people who got prayed for that didn't live? It puzzles me is the nicest way I can say how I feel about that.
Yeah, it's the whole thing I heard today. It was kind of cringy. It was kind of cringe worthy. Talking with Gregg Doyel.
All I heard was thousands of people cheering. I don't know about you, but all I could hear is thousands of people cheering, because they love to be told. They love to be told what they think they know.
Gregg Doyel, columnist for the Indianapolis Star, joining us here on the Cash In SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. What I'm as confounded about in all of this, having been part of the NBC family for a few years with NBC Sports Radio as a host, is why NBC chooses to put up with it. Because let's be honest, Gregg, you've worked in sports a long time. I've worked in sports a long time. How many people do you run into that are really watching Sunday Night Football going, man, I can't wait for that riveting Tony Dungy analysis? I don't get what the lure is to even have him on there to begin with.
Well, I guess the lure is that he's in the Hall of Fame. He won a Super Bowl. I mean, the lure is not that he's going to say anything very interesting. But listen, I mean, you heard thousands of people cheering, and when someone like him says what he says about kitty litter, there are millions of people that think he's right. And so people like Tony Dungy have their crowd. They are a draw in some circles for reasons that people who actually want to be entertained can't understand. But he's part of a very powerful block of people, and that powerful block of people really don't care about a whole lot of details.
I might be asking you to prognosticate something that you might not care to prognosticate, and if you don't, that's fine with me. Do you think this will have any impact on NBC? The outrage, not you per se, but I'm saying the general scorn and outrage that's out there right now about this?
No. I think it'll blow over. Are you asking basically, do I think he's going to lose his job or get somehow reprimanded?
And look, the way I look at it is the fact that NBC hasn't put out a comment at all is incredibly telling. It just feels like the new strategy in PR these days is just say nothing. Let it go.
Well, it's very telling. What they're saying by not saying anything is we're not touching this. And we know that if we put out a statement, that's going to be fresh meat for the news cycle for 24 more hours. We're just battening down the hatches until it blows over. So they're waiting for it to blow over because it's been 2 full days now since he issued that awful tweet, and so nothing's. Some people, I mean, he's Teflon. He is untouchable. He checks all the boxes. He does, Hall of Fame. He's untouchable.
But I really do think it's almost a strategy now because at ESPN basically with the Dana White thing. Where they basically just said, we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to comment on it. Not that they're not talking about it. Some of their hosts might have said stuff. But, as a company, they basically just said, we'll just wait. It'll blow over until the next thing happens.
Well, ESPN is actually more cynical than that. ESPN told their people, we know that you guys all have social media, Twitter, whatever it is you have. Do not say anything flammable, negative about Dana White. Do not do that. It's not okay if you're an ESPN employee. Because one of their employees tweeted about it and said, hey guys, I want you to know that there's a lot I'd like to say about Dana White, but ESPN has told us we can't. So and NBC is probably in the same boat in that Tony Dungy, as I told you, there's a block of people that, he can do no wrong. That block spends money and NBC has money at stake. And so that's how it is. Money is more important than doing the right thing, especially when people that have done the wrong thing are backed by millions of people that don't understand it's wrong. They don't get it. They don't understand that hate is wrong because they think, but the Bible says you shouldn't be that way. Therefore, it's open season. No, it's not open season. It's not.
Last one. How much has he tarnished his legacy within the Indianapolis community? Do people just tune this out, or does it matter?
A little. I mean, I'm hearing from people, and we'll see how long it lasts. At the moment, there's recency bias. At the moment, it's very painful for a lot of people. Indianapolis is a somewhat bluish pocket in a very red state. Very red state. And football fans skew red, I believe. So you're asking how much Tony Dungy hurt himself in this state, even in this city, with that sport? Very little.
Gregg Doyel does a great job, columnist over at the Indianapolis Star. I appreciate you giving me some time on this Friday. Be well, and let's be in touch. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it, Jason. Thank you. Talk to you later.
before the end of the show as well. 1-800-224-2004 if you have thoughts on the Tony Dungy situation. Also, if you've got a pick that you like for the NFL Divisional Playoff round, tell me about it. I want to hear it. We're coming back. Wrap up this Friday edition, final show of the week, the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Stay with us. Well, it came through on the. It looks like it's gonna come through on the score, but it went over on the total. So probably go one for two. I mean, Lakers are down 3 with 19 seconds left or 18 seconds left, so should be all right. Sheena Easton and Taylor Dane are at Morongo Casino. My baby takes the morning train. Yeah. September. It's Saturday, January. Oh, it's tomorrow night at Morongo. Be a fun show to see. Yeah. Seriously, man. All right, we're all sweating it out together here on the Cash In, as we do every night with you. Watching the conclusion of this Lakers Grizzlies game in Los Angeles. We told you to take the Lakers plus 6.5. That looks like a winner. The total is a loss, 225.5. We told you to take the under. A lot of points scored in the second half. That's a lot of points. Considering there was only 103 points scored in the first half, the two teams have basically combined for like 136 points in the second half. 120-119 Grizzlies on top of the Lakers with 13.2 seconds left, and Memphis inbounding. We'll keep you posted on how this one winds up. Lakers have lost so many close games lately. They really have. It's just brutal. They just cannot catch a break right now. Just, you run through stretches like this. Did the Lakers force a turnover? They did. Wow. Dennis Schroeder hoop and the foul. So he's going to get a chance to shoot a free throw to give the Lakers a 2-point lead with 7.6 to go. Wow. So the Grizzlies turn it over out near midcourt out of a timeout. And the Lakers have a chance. You know what? I always say, look out for overtime. It is the enemy of the sports bettor all the time. And it could be in this one because we have the Lakers plus 6.5. And if this thing goes, to overtime, you never know. Grizzlies could put a bunch of points on the board and wind up winning by more than 6.5. Happens all the time. Dennis Schroeder hits the free throw. So Lakers up 2 with 7.6 to go in the fourth quarter. Boy, Schroeder's hit some big free throws here in the final, and then obviously the steal in the bucket just a moment ago. Huge moment for him in his time with the Lakers. Maybe his biggest moment so far as a Laker. So we'll see what the Grizzlies do coming out of the timeout here, but this has been a wild game tonight. You had the near brawl down on the sidelines with Shannon Sharpe and Steven Adams and Dylan Brooks and Ja Morant, and then Ja Morant's dad. But apparently Shannon Sharpe and Ja Morant's dad made up. I've seen video of it. Apparently they've made up. So the Grizzlies will have it out near midcourt. 122-120. They trail the Lakers. And I wonder if you're Memphis here. Do you go for the win? Try to get the 2 and just tie it? What do you do if you're the Grizzlies? And you know what? I want to see the ball in Ja Morant's hands because late in this game, I have not seen a lot of opportunities for Ja Morant. The ball has not been in his hands. He hasn't even been to the free throw line in this game, but he's going to get an opportunity here in the closing seconds. Looks like, wow, they're calling a foul on the Lakers with 1.9 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. Wow. So if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be 2 free throws for the Grizzlies with 1.9 seconds on the clock. Ugh. Yeah. It's a foul on the rebound. You can see it. So 2 big free throws for Memphis with Dylan Brooks Brendan Clark at the line. He's got to hit them both with only 1.9 on the clock. Hits the first. So could be looking at overtime in Los Angeles. It feels like the Lakers have been in so many of these games lately. It's amazing. And you'd think just law of averages, you're going to get one of these games to go your way, right? There's no way you can possibly lose all of these games. Clark missed the second free throw, and that's it. Game over. Lakers win it. Is it officially a final? Boy, Shannon Sharpe's losing his mind on the sideline. Is that it? They're checking the clock to make sure there isn't more time on the clock, but looks like it's going to be a Lakers win. 122-121 Brandon Clark had 2 free throws to tie the game. He hit the first, missed the second, and the rebound went astray. And that's it. The Lakers finally get a close one. Whew. Finally get a close one to go their way. I don't think there's going to be any time on the clock, but I guess they'll check and see. But that's a good win for the Lakers tonight. They were down as many as 7 within the final 2 minutes, and they stuck with it, and it looks like they're going to get a win. They put 0.4 seconds on the clock. So 0.4 seconds on the clock. Even if the Lakers don't inbound, it really won't matter. There's not going to be enough time for the Grizzlies to do anything, even if they do get the ball. So Lakers will win it. Forget needing the 6.5. They win it on the floor. And everybody goes home happy from crypto tonight with the Lakers beating Memphis. And, Dennis Schroeder was huge down the stretch. A big night for Russell Westbrook off the bench. Remember everybody wanted to get rid of Russell Westbrook? Russell Westbrook's the problem. Westbrick, all of this. Russell Westbrook has quietly had a really good season coming off the bench for this team. I don't know what his numbers, I don't have his stats in front of me, and I could probably pull them up here in the final couple of minutes that we're on the show tonight. But Russell Westbrook's numbers here over the, especially during the time that they've been without Anthony Davis. So Westbrook this year is averaging 16 off the bench, 6.6 rebounds, 7.7 assists. And that's it. They're still, my God, this game still isn't over. I've never seen a half a second take so long in my entire life. Welcome to the world that is the NBA. We'll recap Paige's picks before we go to, by the way. That's it. Lakers win. Now it's final. 122-121 is the final. And that's a great win for the Lakers tonight. Great win for the Lakers. And one they desperately had to have with some of these close losses and the officials just taking games away from them left and right. So the Lakers go to 21-25. Grizzlies drop to 31-14. Paige's picks. If you missed it earlier in the show, let me recap it before we say goodbye. The Jaguars and Chiefs, we told you to take the over in that game. 52.5 is the total. Giants and the Eagles, we said take the Giants plus 7.5. Of course, they've been cover machines throughout really the last couple of years in the NFL, but in particular this year, they have been cover machines. The Bengals and Bills, the game I am the least confident in. Made sure I made that clear during Paige's picks tonight. Of the 4 picks I gave you, this is the one I feel the least confident in. The Bengals plus 5.5 is my pick there. And then the Sunday night game, the Cowboys and the 49ers. Sunday night in Santa Clara. We talked with Daryl Guru Johnson earlier in the show about it. Take the 49ers minus 3.5. Run to your nearest legal bookmaking operation and take the 49ers minus 3.5. We love them on Sunday night. If you missed anything from the show, go and check out the Cash In podcast. It's available on all your favorite podcast providers, including Spotify. On the podcast tonight, you'll get our interview with Daryl Guru Johnson from 95.7 The Game, their midday host in San Francisco, where we talked with him about that Cowboys 49ers matchup. Also, my conversation with Gregg Doyel, sports columnist from the Indianapolis Star. We got into some detail and talked about his column that he recently wrote regarding Tony Dungy and some of the just crazy things he's been saying here over the last week. And again, should be noted, Tony Dungy will be working the NBC broadcast tomorrow. NBC has not said a single word about his now deleted tweet talking about kids identifying as cats and putting litter boxes in bathrooms in a shot at the transgender community. And then when he said today about Damar Hamlin and equating his getting better with banning abortion, crazy stuff. We'll see you back here on Monday. I'm Jason Page, the Cash In. Bye. All right, Justin, have a good night. Thank you for your help. Have a great weekend, man. All right, bye-bye. All right, and that's that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening all week. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the football. If you're not following me on TikTok, do it now. The Jason Page on TikTok. We'll have plenty of content up there all weekend. Not putting as much up during the week because I have the radio show to kind of keep me busy, but we're definitely going to have content up there this weekend. We just put up a new piece on Tony Dungy, so if you want to go to TikTok and check that out, please feel free to do so. Again, the Jason Page on TikTok. I'll see you back here on Monday. Enjoy the football. Stay safe. I'll see you all later. Bye.